as an international campaign against US and Zionist occupation.
Tell by the troop levels that we're getting closer to the conference. It's a good job creation scheme, dictatorship. It keeps hundreds of thousands of police and soldiers in work. This is us here.
30 years spent working for the Arab cause has made Galloway a well-known and much-loved figure here, a modern-day Lawrence of Arabia.
We consider you that you are Arabic more than all all the Arab rulers.
Yes. All the rulers.
Yes.
This is definitely true.
Yes.
With many here believing that the West is against them, Galloway is seen as an inspiration.
We are students in Al-Azhar University, Cairo University. What do you say to the students, Muslim Brotherhood students in Muslim Brotherhood and the other students? What do you say to them?
Thawra Hatta al-Nasr.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
هو نائب يعبر عن الضمير الإنساني. نائب يحب الشعب العربي والشعب العربي يحبه. هو أول من وقف أمام جورج بوش وتابعه بلير النائب جورج جالوي.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Before a crowd that includes high-profile members of Hamas and other Islamist groups, Galloway delivers a message that would make George Bush and Tony Blair flinch.
We now know, and the whole world now knows, America is defeated in Iraq. It is defeated in Iraq. The Americans do not control one street in one town or one city in a country they invaded and conquered 3 years ago. When their soldiers leave their base, they drive as quickly as they can back to the base. They know that this can be their last journey on earth. And so I say, from the bottom of my heart, we salute the resisting people of Iraq, which has inflicted this defeat upon the superpower, the United States of America, in Fallujah, in Ramadi, in Samara, in Najaf, in Karbala, in Basra, all over Iraq. The Iraqi people have risen and spoken and fought and defeated this superpower which invaded them.
Should I take that to mean that you support Iraqi insurgents who launch attacks and kill American, British and potentially Australian soldiers?
Well, first of all, I should say that it does not imply that I support every action taken in the name of the Iraqi resistance, especially as we now know that some of the actions undertaken in their name, ostensibly, were actually undertaken by other people entirely, with a different agenda completely. So, whilst I support the legal, internationally enshrined legal right of any occupied people to resist their violent occupiers, that does not mean that every operation conducted by the Iraqi resistance is one that I would support. And
well, what about an operation, for example, where Iraqi insurgents blow up a US Humvee?
No, there's no question that that's an entirely legitimate act of resistance. That's enshrined in the Geneva Convention and in international law. The violent occupiers have invaded the country illegally on the basis of a pack of lies, and the Iraqi people are resisting them. And the kind of operation you mention, whilst a tragedy for the soldiers inside the Humvee, is an entirely legitimate act of resistance.
Galloway first became heavily involved in Iraq in the 1990s, campaigning against the sanctions imposed by the United Nations after the Gulf War. Like many, he believed sanctions were crippling the country and denying health services to sick children.
Why not send a message to this child behind me now by sending an army of cancer experts laden with suitcases of cancer drugs to come and help the Iraqi health service, these heroes who are working in these conditions.
No notes or anything we need to...
After meeting 4-year-old Mariam, who was sick with leukemia, he set up the Mariam Appeal, raising money to pay for her treatment and for his campaign. He met Saddam Hussein twice and Deputy Prime Minister Tariq Aziz numerous times. But these contacts with the leadership of a brutal regime saw him widely condemned as an apologist and the friend of a dictator.
From more than 15 years ago, in Parliament, on the record, I made clear my detestation of the Iraqi dictatorship. I just don't believe in murdering people's children because you don't like their dictator.
Galloway's critics, who said he was too close to the regime, would soon appear to have their suspicions confirmed. When coalition forces took over Baghdad at the start of the war, government buildings and their contents were laid open. On April 22, 2003, Britain's Daily Telegraph claimed its reporter had come across incriminating documents inside a building. They purportedly showed Galloway received money from the Iraqi regime by getting allocations through the Oil for Food program. Just a few days later, the US Christian Science Monitor came up with a separate set of documents with similar claims. But these later documents proved to be forgeries.
In the case of the documents that were shown to me by the Christian Science Monitor, there were some blatant aspects to them that made it rather easy for me to say that in all likelihood, for any degree of certainty, they are forgeries.
The advice of expert Hassan Namneh, plus that of others, saw the Christian Science Monitor retract their story and pay a financial settlement to Galloway. He says that in 2003, Baghdad was awash with forged documents.
What was clearly the case, it was as a result, it's a supply and demand issue, as a result of a demand on the part of the media in particular, but also on the part of government agencies. You had entrepreneurs, I guess we can call them, who basically tried to use whatever material is available, whatever knowledge that they had, in order to create forgeries and sell them. And actually there was quite a market for documents in that period.
But who was behind the Galloway forgeries? George Galloway alleges it was payback by the same people behind the invasion that he opposed, namely the pro-war Iraqi exiles in league with the United States and the United Kingdom.
Well, the speed with which it was done, the fact that it was clearly done by Iraqis, not only was it written in Iraqi dialect of Arabic, but they had all the headed note paper. I mean, it was a very serious forgery. They had the headed note paper of all sorts of different Iraqi ministries, the headed note paper of Saddam Hussein's sons, all the wherewithal to construct an elaborate conspiracy, all within a few days of Baghdad falling. So there was a very limited number of people who could have done it. They certainly had the motive to do it, the animus to drive them to do it.
Hassan Namneh also examined the documents used by the Daily Telegraph and found they were consistent with authentic documents, but says for absolute certainty more testing would need to be done. He says documents can't be taken at face value.
There's always a need to corroborate whatever evidence that the documents provide with evidence external to the documents in order to get the full story clearly.
In court, George Galloway won his defamation case against the Daily Telegraph. The judge said of the newspaper,
"It was no part of the defendant's case to suggest that any of these allegations were true, or even that there were reasonable grounds to suspect they were true."
I never solicited support from anything in Iraq, any institution or any